Okay, so the breaking news is that Jarrell Big Baby Miller, coming off his loss to Daniel Dubois, has since been arrested for carjacking, burglary, and assault. According to 7 News Miami, Miller was arrested on Tuesday for allegedly stealing a truck from a dealership in Hollywood. According to reports, a woman arrived at Hames Motors in Hollywood to claim she left her cell phone in a vehicle that had been repossessed. Detectives were told that an employee of the dealership found the keys to the vehicle and walked with the woman to the truck. But that is when the situation reportedly took a sinister turn for the employee. He claimed that Jarrell Miller grabbed him from behind, placed him in a chokehold, and demanded the keys. The employee went on to state that Miller slammed him to the ground and grabbed the keys and fled in the truck. Fortunately for the dealership, the truck had a tracker inside it, which made the whereabouts of the vehicle very easy to ascertain. Arriving in court on Wednesday, Miller was charged with carjacking without a weapon and burglary with assault. 7 News reports the prosecutor stated the following, quote, "It would appear that Mr. Miller, he knew what the plan was going to this business to get his car back. It would appear by any means," unquote. Miller is currently being kept at Broadwood County Jail. Now, this doesn't sound like the crime of the century exactly. Seems like his car, or maybe the lady's car that he was with, was repossessed, and in a fit of rage, they've gone to take it back by force. Nevertheless, it is a crime, and Jarrell Miller is in hot water here. And it's interesting that it happened so soon after his loss to Daniel Dubois, because Miller has always been a dodgy character. We know that from the amount of times he's failed PED tests and how unrepentant he is about it. No remorse whatsoever. Without boxing and combat sports in general, you do wonder where Jarrell Miller would be. I suspect in the penitentiary. And maybe he will end up in the penitentiary even with boxing in his life. There have been so many fighters over the years who showed some promise but wound up in the big house, especially heavyweights. So I'm going to give you some examples. These are much more extreme than Jarrell Miller, by the way. Okay, way more extreme than Jarrell Miller. But here are a couple of examples. So Mike Tyson fought a guy back in the 1980s before he became champion called Reggie Gross. That fight was famous for Gross coming out very aggressively, attacking Mike Tyson, throwing loads of shots at him, most of which Mike Tyson was able to evade with his head movement. And then Tyson comes back with a big left hook amidst all these punches being thrown at him and drops Reggie Gross heavily. Gross gets up, but Tyson steams into him and finishes him off. It's one of Mike Tyson's most replayed highlight reel knockouts. You'll see it all over the internet. You may not know the name of the opponent, but that is Reggie Gross. Now, the interesting thing about Reggie Gross is that he was a career criminal. Even at the time when Mike Tyson fought him, he went on to lose several more times to people like Frank Bruno. Donovan Razor Ruddock beat him. That was the last time he fought in 1988. Within a year of that loss to Donovan Razor Ruddock in 1988, Reggie Gross was indicted on several counts of murder because Reggie Gross, believe it or not, had actually been working as a hitman. That's who Mike Tyson and Razor Ruddock fought when they took on Reggie Gross. They were fighting a guy who is actually an active hitman. He's currently serving his 3 life sentences, with 2 of them consecutive. His release date is in 2048. He's got a long time to go. Bear in mind, he's been in there since the late 80s. So that's Reggie Gross. Then we've got this character here, Clifford Etienne. He also fought Mike Tyson back in the days. Now, the most strange thing, tragic, however you want to describe it, about Clifford Etienne is that he was sentenced for an armed robbery much earlier on in his life, which he got something crazy like 30 years for, but because of good behavior, he only served 10. And while he was in prison, he learned to box. He became the prison champion. He was apparently undefeated in prison. And so when he came out of prison after the 10 years, he took up professional boxing and he made a decent name for himself. He became a contender. He was doing fairly well, but he did end up losing a bunch of fights. Most famously, he got knocked out in the first round by Mike Tyson. That was Tyson's first fight back after he lost to Lennox Lewis. And shortly after his loss to Mike Tyson, Clifford Etienne went straight back to the place where he'd come from. Because I remember when Clifford Etienne was fighting, his whole story was about redemption, about the fact that he'd turned his life around in prison. And I think there was some talk that he'd turned to God and all this type of stuff. But as soon as things started going bad for him in boxing and he started losing a load of fights, he went right back to that life of crime, got himself convicted. And Yeah, he really did get himself convicted. So on August 11, 2005, FightNews.com reported that he was arrested in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on charges of robbery, kidnapping, and the attempted murder of a police officer. On the 22nd of June 2006, following his trial in Baton Rouge, Etienne was found guilty and sentenced to 160 years. In April 2013, his sentence was reduced from 160 years to 105 years due to a technicality. So anyway, those are two extreme examples of people who were professional heavyweight fighters and ended up in the slammer for a very, very long time. Jarrell Miller doesn't have that kind of extreme history, but you do wonder with him, because he's got such a colossal ego. How's he going to take that loss to Daniel Dubois? Will it make him go off the rails? What effect might the punishment that he took in the Daniel Dubois fight have on him? I mean, we know all about CTE and what that can do to a person. Some of the symptoms of CTE can be outbursts of violence, mood swings, and all this type of stuff. And when you've got a character who's already very narcissistic and volatile as it is in Jarrell Miller, and you combine it with CTE, it can be a disastrous combination. Now, obviously, I'm not wishing this, but in my mind, it's a possibility. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section below. Could it be an indication of things to come? Could Jarrell Miller be on a slippery slope?
Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.